Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're making a review on how good the flip lands of Ixalan are in competitive games. And just by looking at them right here, I think the art are incredibly beautiful. The design is amazing and the effects is incredible. All tap for a colored mana and all have an extremely powerful effect. So just by that they should be good. However, when we turn them over, we instantly see a cost and condition for these cards to flip over to that amazing land on the other side. We have Van's Blasting Cannons, an enchantment for 4 mana that exiles a card off top of your library every start of your turn, and you can play that card if you have mana and unless it is a land. And you need to cast 3 spells on the same turn for this card to flip over to that land. And here's the thing, 4 mana to draw a maybe card every turn isn't really awesome, and to cast 3 spells on the same turn isn't really easy. And the benefit of getting a land that can deal 3 damage from all this isn't really worth it. There are so much better cards to put in, and the risk of this never flipping is like too huge. It's not really worth having a card in your deck that will almost do nothing unless you can actually activate it, and the activation isn't really something amazing. There's better cards for consistently and more securely removing creatures from the game than this. And then we have the Blood Feast. You cast it for 2 mana, and then you can activate it for 2 mana and pay to life to draw a card. And on a budget, this is okay. I will never really see it be played in a serious competitive level because there are just other cards that do this much better already. Like Necropotence is just much better than this. And this will never flip in a commander game. Getting your life total from 40 life down to 5 is not gonna happen, and it's not worth it. You don't need that much cards. But how about Growing Rights of It Lamacq, the baby cradle? It is not good. Sorry. For 3 mana and maybe draw a creature. Well, sure, most likely you are going to draw a creature, but you also need 4 creatures in play to make this flip, and decks that can do this in competitive level are gonna say that this card is just too slow. The decks that could play this in competitive level are Sisei, Yisan, Slivers, Edric, and Timna, and similar decks like that. And they're just gonna be too fast for this card. 3 mana is expensive, and getting a Gaia's Cradle isn't really worth it. Like, I play Sisei and Yisan a lot, and I will say that this card is too slow for me. And the benefit isn't really worth it because I need to cut a card, and I need interactions and ways to protect my combo more than I need a Gaia's Cradle. And when considering this card for either Timna or Edric the Spymaster, those decks draw more cards than this at a much lower cost, and they don't even need this much mana to combo off. It is just going to be a little bit in the way. Now, it may sound like all of these cards are pretty useless, but coming up is Search for Azcanta. This is a card that I actually think is pretty okay. I think it's gonna need a bit of testing, but I actually have a deck where I think this card is gonna find its place in very well. It is 2 mana enchantment. At the beginning of my upkeep, I may look at the top card of my library, and I may put that card into the graveyard. And if this graveyard of mine have 7 or more cards in it, this cards flip into that amazing land that taps for mana and have an ability that almost draws a card. It actually is better than drawing a card because I get to look at the top 4 and put one of them that isn't a land or a creature into my hand. Now, let's just only look at the cost and compare this with Rampant Growth. For 2 mana, search my library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. And Search for Azcanta is also just 2 mana, and in a way it is a land that comes into play a little bit later, just like it would enter the battlefield tapped. And getting 7 or more cards into my graveyard isn't really hard. That is actually something a lot of commander decks can do pretty easy. But I did mention that there was one deck that I had that I would put Search of Azcanta into, and that's my Scaping Maze deck. It is a 5-colored combo deck that wanna reach 10 or more lands, then casting Scapeshift to put Maze End and all the gates into play, and then activating Maze End to win, either by having Amulet of Vigor in play that makes all the lands come into play untapped, or by having Maze End in play untapped already and having 3 mana left in the pool after resolving Scapeshift. This is a deck that runs heavily amount of cards that end up in the graveyard like counterspells and search for lands to put into play. So it would make Search of Azcanta flip pretty easy, but it also needs 10 or more lands to be active to reach that critical mass. And Search of Azcanta is a land. So I think Search of Azcanta would actually fit pretty well into this deck. And the last one, Legion's Landing. And I think this card is truly amazing. I actually think this is the best card among the 5. 1 mana, get a 1/1 vampire creature token with lifelink. That is bad. However, there is a deck that is very strong and competitive. It is a stacks deck that runs a lot of hate bears, creatures with power 2 or less, and running Sadar and Timna to draw new cards and find the combo, usually Protean Hulk, or maybe just Tooth and Nail, Mikaeus and Triaskeleton, or anything similar to that. And that deck can make this card flip pretty easy. And getting a land for 1 mana is really good. It is actually really good. That deck runs a lot of mana dorks such as Llanowar Elves and such. And getting a creature that can attack and getting a land that taps for mana just for 1 mana is actually pretty good. And one more thing worth considering. Timna Sadar is a stacks deck that makes the games long and dragged out, together with opponents that usually disrupts and destructs. The games turns into places where no one is actually winning by combo, and everyone is just sitting there trying to do something but can't really get through all the way. And then suddenly Timna Sadar plays Elish Norn because of the experience. Games sometimes becomes like this. And then having a land that creates 1/1 vampire tokens is actually a kinda neat, good-looking bonus to the thing. And that's kinda good. And that just wrapped everything up. Now we looked at all these 5 cards, and overall, some of them could be used, most of them are really not going to be used. Casually, I think they are truly amazing. I really like the cards, I really like the design. I love cards that come with conditionings. It makes interesting deck building, and it's quite fun to play. In experience, I really think casually, Van's Blasting Canyons are amazing. I really recommend the card for casual games. However, don't try to build anything out of it competitively. The same with Gaia's Cradle version, Baby Cradle. The Blood Feast is just a budget card. However, I think Legion's Landing is economy-wise good. It is considerably the same thing as a Mana Dork, and Search for Azcanta is basically the same thing as a Ramp on Growth. And those cards are actually kind of okay playing, I think, just because of that. But overall, the Ixalan cards, flip lands, aren't really going to be used that much. And that's it for this video. Have a great day. Thanks and bye.
Without any regret, stagnation runs We get low